Hey, buddy, watch this.
Hello, Regis Kilbin is the name, and Hearthstone is the game, and this is part 5 of my Whispers of the Old Gods card reviews. A handful of new cards have already been revealed, and it's time to take a little closer look at them, starting off with the new Warrior 1-mana card called N'Zoth's First Mate. This is a 1-mana, 1/1, with what is actually, I think, a pretty powerful battle cry. Equip a 1/3 Rusty Hook. Now, that's a hilarious sounding weapon. This art is hilarious. There is some kind of crazy bug pirate riding a giant wasp. And in general, I think this card could be surprisingly sneaky good. Now, not only does it support the pirate archetype, which is all about weapons and low to medium cost cards, buffing those weapons and some internal synergies. But really, just as a kind of pure value card, a 1/3 weapon can be surprisingly good. Warrior, of course, does have a lot of ways to ping off 1 health minions, so I think the value of a 1/3 weapon is a little more diminished in Warrior than it is in a class like Paladin with Light's Justice for Muster for Battle, which makes it so good. So you can kind of think about this as a really tiny Muster for Battle. Obviously with fewer minions and a slightly worse weapon. But if you start to think about it that way, except 2 turns earlier, you can kind of see where the value comes from. Plus, the Rusty Hook is incredibly good when you think about weapon buffs, because you don't care that the attack is weak. What you're really looking for is that durability, so that it allows you to stack weapon buffs more easily. And this card lets you do that even earlier, since it's a 1-drop that gets you a body on the board for some initiative and that weapon right off the bat to start buffing. And I think N'Zoth's First Mate, surprisingly, as a 1-drop, might even open up the door for some legitimately competitive pirate warrior decks, depending, of course, on what other cards we see. But this is a great card. It's cute, it's valuable, it's surprisingly powerful for what it is, so I'm all about this one. Up next is a 4-mana card called Faceless Shambler. This is a neutral minion with 1/1 in stats, which is miserable for a 4-drop, but you'll see from the effect that's nothing to worry about too much. It also has Taunt, and the battle cry, copy a friendly minion's attack and health. So, say you have a Twilight Drake out on the board. You copy it, you get all those stats. Say you have a Mountain Giant out on the board, copy it, you get all those stats. So you can start to see, for 4 mana, potentially you not only get highly efficient stats, like an 8/8 for 4, which is ridiculous, right? That's the dream that you live with Mountain Giant, Molten Giant, and so on and so forth. So that's good. But it also has Taunt built in. So whereas a classic Handlock has always relied on Sunfury Protectors or Defender of Argus to activate their Molten Giant or Mountain Giant taunts, or their Twilight Drake taunts, Faceless Shambler basically sticks all that into 1 card and says, not only can you get the stats, I'm also going to give you the taunt right here as a part of that. So you get to double the body. You still get the taunt value. And it seems like it could be a good card in classes and decks that emphasize cheap, high-value minions like Handlock has historically done. Even with cards like Eerie Statue from League of Explorers, it's a 4-mana 7/7. I've always thought that card could be sneaky good in certain scenarios, particularly with something like Faceless Shambler that lets you get another 4-mana 7/7 that has Taunt, so it's doubly valuable. Now, we haven't seen this card in action yet, but I do think based on the language it will be a silenceable effect. Unlike Faceless Manipulator, which transforms into another card, I don't know the exact language there either. So it's not like a buff or an effect, it's a transformation. It becomes the new card completely. So when you silence the new card, it doesn't matter, it's still that card. This one, it does say copy a friendly minion's attack and health. It's not turning into a new card, so I think it will be a silenceable effect, sending it back to a 4-mana 1/1, which isn't good. particularly because the taunt is bundled in, so it might be a silenced target anyway. So, depending on the state of Ironbeak Owl and silence in general in standard format, Faceless Shambler could be hurt pretty significantly by that. Let's move on to the next card. It is actually our next old god. It's N'Zoth the Corruptor himself. Along with Cthulhu, we've now got N'Zoth. This is another 10 mana old god, but this time it has 5/7 in stats. And another really powerful late game battle cry. Summon your Death Rattle minions that died this game. So clearly N'Zoth is designed around Death Rattle synergies. So if you play a 3 mana Death Rattle, a 5 mana Death Rattle, 7 mana Death Rattle, you play this guy on turn 10, suddenly you have an instant board that's full of goodies, right? So in a sense, you can kind of maybe think about it almost like something like Varian Wren, where it's pulling from a set of resources. Varian Wren, of course, pulls from your deck. This one pulls from what would essentially be the graveyard of dead minions. And that said, I kind of think N'Zoth might be too slow. It's an absolutely outstanding effect that when you pull it off and you're not behind on board, will obviously win you the game. If you have 3 or 4 minions that are good that you summon, if you get that Sylvanas, you get the Sludge Belcher or the equivalent, you get the Paladin Shredder, all of which I know are going away in standard format, but similar cards will exist. Just consider those for the emphasis of this discussion. That's a board, right? Especially if there are taunt Death Rattle minions that can help support the slow nature of this card. In other words, it's a defensive wall that buys you time, most likely, to play the next turn, instead of just getting trampled by whatever your opponent has done, or getting killed by some lethal from hand or minions on board, right? Taunts would allow you to set up and use both N'Zoth and that menagerie of minions that you summoned to actually attack and gain value instead of just sitting on a board when the game is already over. So, yeah, it could be good. With taunts, with cards that have active immediate effects, which most Death Rattle cards don't, so it's probably going to have to be taunts. Because at 10 mana for N'Zoth, you won't have any spare mana to do anything else with the rest of the turn. So you kind of have to stay alive and be in the game. Some fatigue-style decks, really late-style control decks, it's all good. It just kind of feels like a win more card. If you're already in a good board state where it's clear to play N'Zoth and you're not dead, then you're probably winning the game anyway, but it's clearly going to be a fun card. And I'd like to see the kinds of Death Rattle decks that come out of this. Some classes certainly already have some Death Rattle synergy and benefits, so this might allow those to kind of turn the corner and become competitively viable. Thinking about like Shaman decks that have always had Death Rattle shenanigans, right? This could be the card that makes them good finally, because it gives them that late game bomb. So we'll see. As far as N'Zoth himself is concerned, a 5/7 is solid. It's not susceptible to Big Game Hunter. He's going to get value likely no matter what in the right deck, just because he's going to, even if they kill him the next turn, it's not like you lost your whole turn. You're going to have other minions. So there's definitely some good here. I'm just hesitant to suggest that this is a meta-defining card, but I would love to be surprised. Up next is a rogue minion, the 2-mana Undercity Huckster. It's 2 mana 2/2, and it does have a Death Rattle. Add a random class card to your hand from your opponent's class. So this is really, if you think about like an upgraded Loot Hoarder, right? Loot Hoarder's 2 mana 2/1, Death Rattle, draw a card. This one's stats are a little better. 2 health is substantially better than 1 health because it can't be pinged off. The Death Rattle, though, is a little bit worse, probably, because it's uncontrolled, it's completely random. You could get a totally useless card or a low-value card. On the other hand, you could draw that Tyrion, right? You could get some crazy, awesome cards too. So there is actually a chance Undercity Huckster wins you the game on turn 2 if you get something like perfect. There's also a chance that it just is very low value, and a 2-mana 2/2 is not inherently exciting. So I don't know. If it said add a random spell to your hand, that probably has better synergy for Rogue in general. So I'm not sure this one works perfectly. But we'll see. A nice, reasonable, low-cost Rogue minion is never something that Rogue is going to want to turn down. So if this becomes like the Dark Peddler of Rogue, Dark Peddler being the Warlock card that's so prominent, who knows? It'll be good, but I don't think it has the instant value and utility of a Dark Peddler, since the effect is delayed, the effect is random, and the body's not that strong. I think Undercity Huckster is probably doomed and destined for the sidelines. Moving on, another 2-mana class card, but this time it is the 2-mana Warlock spell, Renounce Darkness. This one's just totally crazy. One of the most RNG heavy cards we've seen in Hearthstone to date. And we'll certainly make some highlight videos. It's going to be a very fun card. The effect, of course, replace your hero power and the Warlocks, any Warlock cards in your hand. Remember, this is a Warlock card with another class's hero power and another class's cards. And those cards cost 1 less. So to explain that, you're playing Warlock. Let's say you have a Flame Imp, Doom Guard in your hand. You play Renounce Darkness. Your hero power becomes the Priest hero power, and you get 3 Priest cards in your hand. You get a, let's say, 2 Northshire Clerics and a Cabal Shadow Priest. But they now have reduced costs, so the Northshire Clerics cost 0 each, and the Cabal Shadow Priest costs 5. So that's cool, because mana cost reductions are very strong in general in Hearthstone. It just allows you to generate more tempo and get stuff out sooner and make stronger plays all at once. That said, the cards you get are totally random, so they may not fit the style of your deck. They may not fit the state of the game, so they might be really weak cards in the late game or vice versa. The hero power may not also fit your archetype at all, so it's going to be fun. Some crazy highlights will happen, but in general, I feel like this card is pretty risky. And it does say with another classes. It does not indicate that it's the class you're playing against. So it's not even like you can use their archetype against them. In other words, if you're a fast Warlock playing a slow Warrior, it's not like you're going to get a bunch of slow Warrior cards by default. You might just get trashy, fast Hunter cards, right? Who knows? So I don't see the value in this card. I could kind of imagine it as like a last-ditch effort. Like, my cards suck. It's turn 8 and I've got all 1-drops. Let me get rid of this crap, bring in some new cards, and see if I can kind of claw my way out of this. But that means you've had a 2-mana Renounce Darkness sitting in your hand the entire game up to turn 7 or 8 that's been useless thus far. So wouldn't replacing it with an actually good card that impacted the game earlier be a much stronger play? Probably so. So I don't know. This is an awkward card. It doesn't fit anywhere to me. I don't think it sees play outside of like gimmick decks and highlight videos, which it certainly deserves a place in. And that does it for this review. We took a look at N'Zoth's First Mate, Faceless Shambler, N'Zoth the Corruptor, Undercity Huckster, and Renounce Darkness. So thanks so much for stopping by for part 5 of my Whispers of the Old Gods card review. Stay tuned for part 6. So thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.